Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. Welcome back to the show. If you're here live with us, say hello. We'd love to know that you're here, that you're listening, and most importantly, we look forward to all of your questions because that's the beauty of being live. That's the power of it. And also, LinkedIn ranks it better. Spade a spade, spade a spade. That's what's happening here. I am so grateful to our latest guest. We have Rachael Woods in the house. She's going to break it all down for us. Let me give you a little background. Rachael is a corporate marketer turned entrepreneur who loves data. Yes, because we're going to dig into it almost as much as she loves coffee. Oh my gosh, Rachael. I know we're on tea time, but it's all about the coffee. It's what makes us all tick and gets us through the day. She is a marketing strategy expert with 20 years of experience building marketing infrastructure for small and medium-sized businesses. Rachael's boutique marketing agency, Woods MarCom, specializes in data-driven marketing strategy and innovative digital marketing tactics. Yes, I mean, there's two things that landed for me here other than the coffee, so maybe three. Two other things that landed for me here is the data and the infrastructure, and that's what we're going to dig into today. So if you're here with us, we're grateful, and hang on to your hat. It's going to be a good show. Rachael, before we dig into the crux of our conversation, I want to know your story. This is all well and good, 20 years of experience, whatever that means. Tell us how you got there, like the journey. Yes,
absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I always laugh when I start to tell my origin story because it's such an interesting, different path than a lot of people took. Marketing is somewhat also of a creative field. It's also something that's kind of got as a business aspect. And I'm actually trained as a scientist. So I was one of those in high school, was taking the AP chemistry class before, we called it 0 hour at the time. So it was before school even started. We were there at 7 o'clock in the morning doing all of those things. And I'd really kind of focused on thinking about forensic science, thinking about medical school. I went to college and majored in chemistry. I had a minor in human anatomy, and my junior year of college, I took an internship at the emergency department. And that is where I learned that I cannot be around needles or blood without being ill or passing out. I literally nearly passed out in a room with a doctor who was trying really hard to give me the ultimate experience, and then quickly realized, okay, she needs to go because I was about to create another situation in the emergency department. So that kind of changed things for me in terms of what is my plan, what's my scope. Just a little bit. We also took in my part of my human anatomy course, we took we dissected a human cadaver, which was very interesting from a parts and how things work together perspective. But very, very challenging for me to make it through that course, just from being in the presence of humans. So when I graduated, I took a job as a quality assurance specialist in a lab. And I just discovered that lab work, that repetitive work, it just wasn't for me. I just found that I like things to change, things that are a little bit different. And so I was kind of at that spot where I'd gone this whole period of time on this science focus and was sort of not really sure where I was going to go from there. But fortunately for me, I'm kind of a parallel storyline. My husband at the time, he and I had decided to start our family early, was, young in our early 20s. And so having my son gave me an opportunity to take some time off, do maternity leave, spend time with him. And when I re-entered the workforce, what I really wanted was something, maybe part-time, something a little bit flexible. And I started doing some nonprofit fundraising just for something that sounded fun, something that sounded, enjoyable in my halftime. And then that really grew into nonprofit fundraising as a whole, and then doing event planning, and then doing marketing. And, that really kind of catapulted me into then learning and growing within the marketing space. So it's kind of interesting that I have this whole scientific educational background. And then now here I am on this entirely different path. And they do align very, very well, but it's a very unusual journey for someone to take to get from A to the Z where I'm at now.
This is why I love doing the show, because I feel like so many of us, whether marketing found us or we found marketing, we have these interesting backstories. I went to school for photography.
Oh, yeah.
And while there's like some element of, advertising and marketing in that, it's not what I was set out to do. But the reason why I love photography is because it is a scientific thing. It's chemicals that you mix and the chemical reaction that happens when you develop film or you're developing prints, and the filters you add, whether on the camera or on the enlarger, to get those after effects, the dodging and burning, all of that is science. And there's an interesting overlap that happens with marketing that is behind the scenes. We don't really think about it. It's not as forefront as like being, in the scientific fields that you were talking about that are very science focused, being in ER and working with actual medicine. But it's there. The science of what we do is actually very prevalent. It's just not at the forefront, but we need to understand it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And once you start looking for it, then you start seeing it everywhere, specifically in marketing, actually.
I want to dig it. I'm going to write a note. Hold on. I want to circle back on that and I want to not forget it. So I wrote it down because before we get there, because I think it's going to lend itself nicely into our conversation where we're going to unpack all the things as it relates to data and essentially science. I want to know what challenge you're currently facing. Where are you right now, Rachel? That's sort of making your job feel harder than maybe it needs to be.
Yeah, it's such a great question. So I have been doing marketing for organizations and systems for almost 20 years. And I'd always thought about doing my own business. I'd always thought about, breaking out on my own. And I know other folks who have done that and really enjoyed it. And what I believe I underestimated is how much goes into managing your business and then marketing your business, that really makes it difficult to then also do the work that you are here to do. So I think my biggest challenge right now is finding the balance between the work you work, which is what I'm here for. That's how I'm generating revenue. That's how I'm helping businesses. That's how I'm doing the relationships. But then also all of the administrative tasks that go along with balancing your books and making sure that you have SOPs in place and processes and all of that, paying your taxes. So this time of year, yes. And then honestly, I think what is hardest, and I've heard this from other marketers, is us marketing our own business, right? I think what I prioritize is the worky work, and probably equally as important is that operations piece. And what I find is the third leg of the stool that gets very under less attention than everything else probably is my own marketing, because you just kind of have to start prioritizing. So I think that's what's the hardest, is trying to balance all of those things and find out how to be most efficient, how to make those things work. I'm still learning on that side of it. So my marketing is definitely not the level that I would recommend that a client that I'm working with have, because I don't have a team doing that to help me.
It's so funny, the recommendations we make for clients and we don't do it for ourselves. It's the irony is real. Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's definitely it is the triple product. I'm currently working with a company who's trying to build a fusion microreactor, and they talk about the triple product, which is how you get fusion to actually happen. And for us as an agency, we have our own triple product, which is making sure that our operations in order, our finances in order, and our marketing and sales is in order. And to get those three things to work at the same time is science.
Yes. Yes.
Really,
absolutely.
It truly, I am with you on that, Rachel. I feel it as a friend in the agency world. The struggle is absolutely real. I don't know why our own marketing gets such the shaft.
I know. It's really a bummer because I'll be talking with someone and they'll go, "How do you do that?" I'm like, "Well, so I haven't done that yet. It's on my list, but I haven't done it
But I do
yet.
for
I've
my
done it for other
clients, and they're
people."
doing great.
Yes. Check out this business. Theirs is going great.
Don't look at my website, but look at my clients over here.
Yes,
They're
yes,
doing. I
yes.
know. If only we had the same resources. Someday.
Mhm.
It's the dream. It's the dream.
Yep.
Let's talk about, speaking of science and data, let's talk about where people are right now in terms of there's too much.
Mhm.
There's too much data and too many tools to help us figure out the data. So Rachel, like, where do you start with it all? Like, is it even before we even think about the outcome of the numbers and in the KPIs and the forecasting? Like, where do you begin with it all?
Yeah, it's such a great question because I start a lot of conversations when I'm talking with people and they're feeling like they have to be doing everything from a tactical perspective. I have to be on TikTok. I have to be doing these different things that I'm not doing. And there's so much pressure to be showing up in every single space. And I like to start kind of with three main questions and start looking from that. And the first one is really who's your audience? And that's not a brand new question. That's something that's very, very, at the top of the list of things you want to start with. But really digging into that is I think a lot of folks maybe start, okay, I know the answer to that question, they move on, but we didn't really pause and dig into that. And that's where I really want to start is let's talk more than about, age, gender, income. Let's think about where are these customers or potential customers, where are they getting their news, what are their needs and wants, what podcasts are they listening to, what social media um, accounts are they following, looking a little bit deeper on who they are, what they need, where they go, where you can reach them. And I think that that's such an evolving I don't think you can ever do that once and be done with it because
No.
the times change, the technology changes,
Mhm.
all of that. So I think starting with a really robust question and answer and analysis of that is always kind of that first place to start. The
It's
second
very
one, oh
hold
yeah, go
on,
ahead.
let's sit there. Let's
Mhm.
absolutely unpack that because it's so qualitative. You can't just
Mhm.
go online and start searching, "Where does my audience hang out?" Sorry,
No,
folks.
definitely.
Google does not have all the answers. I'm sorry to break it to you. Um, so how do you start answering some of those very qualitative questions of where is your audience? What questions do they have? What
Mhm.
media are they consuming? And what do they care about?
Absolutely. I usually start with talking with a business owner specifically about, who are the customers that you're really working with now, and I start with them because they would know at least from the kind of the most direct perspective of these are, my clients are really their moms and they're looking for this and they have these struggles, or my customer is a doctor and they are really having these challenges when they're trying to identify a health challenge or what that kind of thing. So trying to start with them and trying to get a bit kind of that basic what from their research or consideration or what are they seeing. I was really targeting moms, but I've really recognized that this other audience is really popping into our work and starting there. And then I think we add a layer on of when you think about those audiences, what do we know about them kind of statistically in terms of thinking about social media platforms based on, some of age demographics, thinking about some of that. And again, that's not, super, super high level yet, but that kind of just gives you another layer of are they on TikTok? If you're looking at folks that are in their 40s, they probably aren't on that platform as often as maybe we think that they are. Thinking about those kinds of things. And then kind of on the top layer of that is I use a tool called SparkToro. And what I think there's other tools out there, but that tool takes kind of all of the aggregate data from people's activities in online and on all of their searches and their visits and their, all of the places that they go. And you can start drilling down into gathering some data around people who are interested in this are also interested in this, or people who visit this website frequently. A lot of them are also visiting they're listening to these podcasts, they're looking at these social media platforms, they're looking at these other websites. And I think when we have that kind of first layer of what do we know about your audience, what assumptions can we be made from just sort of our general kind of marketing assessments and data in general, and then drilling down into some of those other pieces, it gives you a lot of information that you can start saying, okay, if they're going to, so for example, I work with a nonprofit organization that's it's an international flower festival. So if people are really interested in this flower festival, and what other elements are they interested in? So what other sites are they looking at? What other social media places are they following? And then you can start going to those places and garnering additional input or more inspiration from that space. And then that also gives you ideas of maybe there's an opportunity to partner with this, or partner with that podcast host, or place an ad in these spaces. You can kind of start branching off from that, just knowing that that's where your audience is and what they're interested in.
There's this podcast I listen to called Pivot with Vox Media. I talk about them all the time. People must be sick of me sick of hearing about them. But Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher, who I just adore. But Scott just mentioned how he always does the Atlassian advertising. So the advertising on Vox is interesting from a podcasting standpoint because it's always spoken. Like it's Kara or Scott actually doing the advertising. It's not some voiceover or plugin. It's like them talking about it. And so they've been doing Atlassian ads forever. And I always I'm like, oh, it's Atlassian. I got it for it. But what's interesting about the latest one is they actually partnered with Scott and Kara to come do a live pivot show at Atlassian. And so now that partnership's happening. And so I stopped to actually listen to what was happening. But yes, partnerships are really powerful between a brand and a really great voice. So if you can find that intersectionality, oh my gosh, magic. The other thing you said, Rachel, that really hit home for me that I hadn't really considered is SparkToro. And now I kind of want to go download it and play because I'm a data nerd and I want to know what I could find in there. One of my big questions right now is I'm working with a startup client and their audience is interesting because it's not an end user. It's not necessarily a buyer. It's the investor side. Okay, we're still trying to build the thing. It doesn't exist yet. We need more investors. Where are the investors? Where are they hanging out? Right. These types of investors is not every investor. What does it even look like? And so I'm on a fact-finding mission. And so I appreciate the tool to see if I can understand more about where these investors might be and how I might interact with them. So you have your audience, you understand more about them other than their gender and age, thank goodness. What do you do with that data? Where do you take it from there in terms of thinking about if this is my audience? Oh, Trevor, hi, welcome. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to your questions. I know you got them. That's a one layer of data against your audience. And then where do you go next in terms of let's assume you figured out the channels and where to go, but then how do you know it's working? And what's the elements that you start to build on the back end to say, yes, we're reaching the right people. Yes, we're getting the conversions we need. Yes to all of the thing, or no. It's okay to get no's. Those are good too. So talk me through the infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think to start, it can be something as simple as, to your point, just grabbing those partnerships and starting to work on, we're going to go on this podcast or we're going to start marketing this space. And it doesn't have to be something super high tech. You can start measuring, are these referral sources driving traffic to the website? You can do things where if you are selling a service or selling something, you can be starting to track that data on, how did you hear from us? How did those spaces go? From a whole advertising perspective, I am a huge believer in using trackable phone numbers and vanity URLs. So you can be tracking all of those pieces in terms of where are those coming from. And I think asking a lot of those questions as you have someone, if someone just comes in and, if you have a store or if you have someone comes in through your website, but you don't have any idea, trying to track back to where those partnerships, where they heard from you is really, really important. And then of course, when you're doing any kind of digital marketing, then all of the tracking that goes along with, where those sources are coming from and that type of thing. But I think some of it can be, that piece of it doesn't have to be super, super high tech. If what we're trying to do is get out and build those relationships and build those partnerships, you can kind of track a little bit organically as well. And for example, being on this podcast, I'll then take a look and say, okay, what is their traffic coming from the website from your show notes that's coming into then, the website? Am I seeing any website form conversions coming through that are saying that they're coming from a podcast? I'll ask them, oh, where'd you hear it? That type of thing. So some of that tracking is just really, really kind of bootstraps, and you can kind of keep track of that and then look at it at the end of the year and say, okay, well, 25% of my incoming revenue came from podcast guest appearances and 60% came over here. So you can start making some decisions. Do we want to dig more into this channel or do we want to double down in the spaces that are converting, that type of thing?
Yeah. There's two things you said there that I want to sit with. The first one, let me write down the other one. The first one is in regards to giving things time. You said wait a whole year and then see what happens, right? Like there's so often, especially when you have a bit of cash. Congratulations to the Scale Up and Enterprises. We appreciate you. Where they make decisions. I think even if you have the money, you still need to give time to see if things are working. So I really love that you said a whole year. I wish all of our clients would give things. Doesn't mean we shouldn't optimize or we shouldn't pay attention.
Oh, yeah.
But don't turn things off because they're not working.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. I worked with a client and they're a brilliant client. And their strategy was to kind of just turn things on and off depending on, and I mean, I think the term was actually, turn off like a faucet or something. It was just a very on off. And there was frustration there on their end because they kind of also in the same breath were like, well, nothing's really working. Like we want to grow, but we can't really figure this out. We can't seem to grow and these channels aren't working. But when you look at that over time, just on a regular, pay per click ad in Google's going to work with that for 4 to 6 weeks in the learning mode and just try to figure all of those pieces out. And then you optimize from there. So even Google is going to be taking several weeks. And then once you get into that past that learning stage, that's then where you can really dive into optimizing and changing and tweaking and testing. And so really giving campaigns like that several months, I would say 6 months at minimum, to say, and you're monitoring, you're optimizing, you're working
absolutely.
through. But,
maybe adding some new assets, but big changes. Brand new will take, depending on how much money you have, anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months for Google to quote unquote learn. And the minute you make any changes to these campaigns, Google likes to go back into its learning phase. It's so fun. My poor digital ads team. I so appreciate them. The struggle is real.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's so important. There's two things I want to say with that, because I think we're all feeling it right now, especially in this move quickly sort of realm of how our clients are feeling, and rightfully so. Tough times out there. In terms of this moving fast phase, there tends to be, I'd love your opinion on this, Rachel. One of the things that I noticed too is there tends to be a throw as many things up against the wall and see what sticks mentality, which then you're spreading everything very thin and then you're not seeing anything work. Is that fair to say? from your opinion?
Yeah, I think there's a couple challenges with that. One is, yeah, you're spreading so thin, so maybe you're having trouble getting results because you're not really investing time. What is that? If you can do 100 things, you can do 5 things really well, but 100 things, there's some saying, of course, I'm butchering it, but you can't do everything fantastically. There's a limit to how many things you can spread out. So that might be part of it if you're only investing minimally in 100 spaces. Another piece then that comes into your bandwidth, right? So your team, if you're fortunate to have a team and they're trying to update social media content on every single platform that's out there, well, every single platform needs a different kind of content and a different format of content. So even if you're taking one piece and you're building, there's some efficiencies. You can say, okay, we're going to write a blog post and then we're going to share it on all of these channels, and that can create 10 pieces of content, but you still have to create this size is here and this type is here, and you've got so many characters over here and all of those pieces. There isn't one way to do that, so you've got a bandwidth limitation, and then yeah, you've I think at that point you're doing so much, you're exhausted, you're like, I am working my tail off, I'm spinning, I'm on the hamster wheel. And so now you start to say, well, this feels, and rightfully so, like it's not working because you're just jamming and you're not seeing results. And so then that feels like, well, let's turn that off. And so I think it kind of can set you up for failure. And I say that with, as there's a lot of peer pressure to be in all the spaces. Everybody's, on TikTok, everybody's on LinkedIn, everybody's on Instagram, everybody's blogging, everybody has an email list, everybody. And so it feels like, and I've actually fallen in this myself, where I'm like, I feel like I should be doing things that I don't have time to do, and I'm not able to do it. And it makes me feel like I'm, you have feelings about your abilities in that
feelings.
space, but you can't do everything all at once and also run your business and do the worky work. So it's trying to kind of balance those things.
Yes. The triple product needs to be in action for sure. I am in total agreement. I find that we tend to spread ourselves too thin. So by doing the work in terms of talking about the infrastructure and taking that step back, my business partner and I used to call it 0.0 or zero, it's before one. You
Right.
need to do the research to understand where you should even be. And it might be TikTok. And if it is, then go all in. Like, okay,
Yeah,
I'm going to test
love
this
it.
one channel and I'm going to do it really well. I'm going to do this thing. Maybe you can bleed in the Instagram because they're kind of the same thing these days. But like those two places and nothing else. And it's going to take you 6 months plus to see if it's even the thing. And you're going to learn. And it's probably going to be really messy at first. And you're going to learn along the way of like do's and don'ts, and you're going to need to iterate. When you're done iterating, make sure you keep on iterating.
Yeah. That's what's so important, because it does, whenever you're trying to hit different things like that, oftentimes it is messy. And so that feels like a failure sometimes too, right? And so that can also lead to feeling like, well, I'm terrible at this, and so we're going to give that up. But if you had continued pushing forward, potentially you could have learned of, actually, now that I've learned a few things, now I'm getting kind of good at it. And now once I'm feeling more confident, we've given it some time, now we're getting more results. So it's, all of those
And
kind
you
of
can
pieces
push
fit
and
together.
iterate. So I started my podcast 4 years ago. Talk about messy. Don't go listen to those episodes, I beg you, or go listen to them knowing that you can compare and contrast. But like, it wasn't live. It was just audio. It was with people I knew and respected. So I knew I could be a little bit more relaxed. So the topics are like, this isn't what you do. What are you talking about? This is way off base. It's just because I wanted to have interesting conversations to get a feel for this weird thing that I was going to start doing. And then it went through it went from audio to a producer, and then and last year I took it live because then I could feel like, okay, I'm comfortable in the space and I can do this. But I'm telling you, it's going to feel, I'm with you, Rachel. It's going to feel really squishy until you start to feel good at it. And I've been doing this for 4 years and I still feel like I could do better. So it's an iterative process for sure. And the more we can sit in the iteration of it and feeling like it's never finished and building on it, the better we all can be. The other thing you said, Rachel, that I thought was really interesting in your first sort of monologue about infrastructure and these things was you were talking about a lot of tactics or ways to measure things that do well, that aren't fancy. We're not talking about big MarTech tools, all the MarTech and all of the land, vanity URLs, right? Which feels like the Bitleys of the world, which I kind of forgot about, but man, I loved going into Bitly and like seeing all of my clicks. Like there was so much validation in that. So help me remind us of the power of some of these wonderful, measurable, non-tech heavy tactics that we can bring today. You mentioned vanity URLs. You said trackable. Tell us more. Tell us more.
Yeah, so you can use there's a system called CallRail, for example. That's the one that I use. And what you can do is you can, especially on a website, if you're doing landing pages for your pay-per-click, anything like that, you can install that. And what it does is when someone comes in from an ad onto your landing page, it actually changes the phone number on the landing page. So while they're calling you directly, their experience doesn't change from it doesn't go anywhere other than still to you. But then this tool is able to capture, okay, this person came in through this landing page or came in through this ad. So for right now, for example, I have a client who's a med spa client. And so we do Google ads for them, paid Google, and then it fits it to a landing page. And because I have this tool, I'm able to say, okay, I know how many people came in through Google ad and filled out the form, right? Because we can look through those conversions in Google and we can look through the form fills on the other side. But I can also tell you that next to that, I can tell you who came into the website through that Google form, or I'm sorry, that Google ad, and then picked up the phone. Or the click to call is also a trigger that you can track within your analytics. But I can also tell you just who picked up their phone and dialed. And so you may not see, so this client, for example, last month, somewhere around like 3 or 4 form fills out of Google specifically. We had a number of their channels, but we also knew that they had like 13 phone calls. So being able to track, if you're just looking at your form fills, you're like, oh, I paid X amount, but I only got 4 form fills. But you also got a whole slew of phone calls. And, for these other channels that we're doing, we were also doing Facebook. And so similarly, we can say how many people called coming in from a Facebook ad, how many of those came into DMs, and then how many of them did the form fills. So you're able to kind of start segmenting out where are they coming from. But when you think about your cost per acquisition, which is that kind of, for me, is that key number of, you get so many impressions, you get so many clicks. That's great. What is it costing me to get a lead to come into the system to actually convert to where I can connect with them directly? You're able to measure all of these different spaces along the way and know what those are, not just the triggers within, Google or that type of thing. So the trackable phone numbers I find to be super, super valuable, because that's another metric that is harder to track. You can't necessarily track that if you're not installing that trackable number.
Help our audience understand who generally you help out. So you mentioned nonprofits. Can you give us a better sense of what your ideal customer is so we can compare this to, like, I work with, and generally who I have on, who I know listen and have on the show in the past is B2B tech marketers for enterprise scale ups, some startups. Startups that could see this. I think startups could find a lot of this really helpful, but I wonder about the more further down the field companies who might need something a bit more malleable because they got big sales teams and those sort of things. So just so who this applies to, because I think these are great and I want to make sure they're going to the right people. So who have you seen these sort of tactics work really well for?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think I'm relatively new on the entrepreneurial side, so I haven't really niched down a whole lot. I find that because I have a healthcare background, I
Mhm.
do tend to have a few more healthcare clients than I have, or healthcare adjacent clients like this med
Mhm.
spa, than other industries. And I've seen the tactics with the trackable phone number and some of those pieces, even with that. Actually, that's kind of how I came across that whole infrastructure, was with large health systems,
Interesting.
because you want your marketing team to be able to put that data forward to their C-suite and say,
Mhm.
we invested, in that case, it might be we're investing $25,000 a month, and our cost per acquisition for these different service lines is XYZ. All the way down to this med spa, who is a one clinic. They've got two front staff people, and so they are investing less than $25,000 a month, but
Yeah.
they're able to make choices on their budget that says, okay, I think in a lot of ways you can scale it up and down, because whether you're at 25,000 or $250,000 a month, you want to know what is your cost per acquisition, and what is that looking like? Because awareness is great. That's always valuable, and that's a great piece, and I would definitely never say not to do those pieces. But if you're trying to generate sales, or you're trying to generate people to come into your system, you need to know that cost, that conversion cost.
Mhm.
Because in the healthcare example, and I think this would work in tech, or, what is the kind of the value of that client or patient or whatnot? If you are trying to sell a CRM system that costs, just round numbers, $10,000 a year, you want your cost per acquisition, as you know, to be low enough that it makes it valuable. If it's $11,000 to bring in a
Making more a
$10,000
year.
client,
Mhm.
right? And so thinking about that and using that, I think, can really be applicable on whatever scale you're looking for. So in healthcare systems, if you're looking at an orthopedics patient, and if you think about the appointment and you think about the scans and all those
Mhm.
pieces, if the cost per acquisition is $100 and the reimbursement rate is, more than that on the first appointment, and then you go all the way down the lifetime value of that patient, thinking about those types of things is, I think, really important, kind of across,
Yeah.
from startups all the way. And so I guess to answer your initial question, I have a variety of right now, I have a couple of healthcare clients. One's a healthcare tech startup, so they're working on a new product and getting that out into the market. I have a couple of restaurants, and so that's kind of a lower
Oh, fun.
investment on marketing. Yeah, they're in an industry that doesn't have high margins, but they still want to make sure they're competing in the space.
Yeah.
And then I have a tech company that I work with, and so I think it's kind of fun for me, because it lets me kind of shift gears a little bit and try some different things.
Yeah. And then you get to see what's working in one industry and try it in another. I'm being a bit pedantic because it sounds like from a healthcare standpoint, you're working on more of a consumer side, so they are more likely to actually call. Did I
Well, at this moment in time, I guess I'm working B2B, but
Okay.
I'm setting up marketing for them to go to consumers. So
Okay.
I can build, and my background is really with the B2C, when I
Yeah.
was in that marketing role to the patients. And so having all of that experience is kind of when I'm setting up B2B systems and thinking about what data do you want and how do I help you kind of build that framework. I'm thinking about all of these things that go out. What is that? How are you best speaking to your target customer and making sure their experience is great, their
Absolutely.
customer journey is strong, all of those kinds of things.
It's all about the end user, for
Hmm.
sure. And I think that's
Exactly.
a really important distinction because unfortunately, as much as we'd love for B2B audiences to pick up the phone and either answer or call us, that is not the case.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but I think there's some lessons here in getting a bit scrappier of like we have all these fancy tech martech tools that I think bog us down a little bit. Let's talk about how we read the data. So we're talking about the infrastructure. So we talked about point zero of what even it is you want to collect in terms of data based off of your user, how you want to track this is beautiful. So like how you actually would attract that information. We talked about some very interesting tactics that have worked for your clients. Regardless of what tactics you use, at the end of the day, you need to figure out what that tracking infrastructure is going to be, whether it's using GTM, whether it's using UTM codes, whether it's using Salesforce codes, whatever that is, it needs to be consistent and clear. And it's going to help you get from what you've been saying, Rachel, end to end, right? From that initial view of an ad to the click of a phone number or filling in a form to then out the other end. So let's assume that everybody has their tracking set up accordingly.
Excellent. That's an amazing world to live in.
It's clean and consistent, and we all know what everything means because you kind of need a diagram to know all of the things. But we're going to assume that we have that diagram and we get it. So let's talk about the next step in this infrastructure of making sure that you know how your customers are converting. So you have the audience, you have the tracking, and then you have what's next then?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to pick kind of your tracking tool, right? And how are you keeping kind of all of those pieces together? I use a dashboard tool that I try to bring in all of the different streams into this one tool. The value from that perspective, I think, as me working with in B2B, and then a lot of my clients have small and mighty teams. And so really they are needing to bring that information forward to their supervisors. And as we go down the line, we're probably getting less and less entrenched or people that are entrenched in the marketing lingo, right? So you want to make this information understandable. You want to make sure that it's something that people can pick up and look at and understand the value or the outcomes without someone on my end standing there and explaining it to them. So I like the dashboard tool from that perspective of the top of it aggregates everything up. So I can tell you based on your monthly investment, this is your cost per acquisition. And then here is the supplemental, how many impressions and the clicks and where people are coming and all of those pieces. And then I break it down by campaign. And then we can say, okay, within Google pay-per-click, here is, your pieces, here's some details there. Facebook or Meta, campaigns, your email marketing, your tracked phone, and breaking down all those pieces. If you could do a lot of that more in Excel, if you had the ability to, it would be great if you could automate the pull into Excel. You can't always do that from different places, but if you're able to, thinking about efficiencies, if there's a way that you can get a lot of it to come in so that you're not trying to no one wants to spend a whole day once a month trying to get all of your data organized. And
you can do it easily.
Yeah. And while I love Excel, that's one of the reasons I tend to lean into the dashboards is because I found one that integrates really well with all of these standard systems. And so I'm able to say, okay, instead of building something in Excel, I'm able to say, okay, this is what I want you to be measuring and tracking and then putting that together. And then that is a very polished, easily approachable packet of information that somebody can pick up and really understand. And they don't need to know what GTM is and, what a UTM, code looks like and how to build that and what that means and all those pieces. So it lets people kind of skip through the minutia a little bit and get to kind of the nuts and bolts. And I think you had mentioned this earlier, kind of when you have everything set up so cleanly, hopefully you also are really clear on these are the things that I want to know. You don't want to know every single piece of data in your entire I would say marketing teams, we probably do. You and I probably do want to know all of the data.
Nerd
But the
alert.
people, but the people that we're working with, and then certainly when you get up to that more executive level, if they want to know, what is our cost per acquisition? What's our, what are we getting out of all of this investment? We've done X amount of dollars a month, or we've invested in these tools, or we've done these pieces. What are those KPIs that are telling us that we're successful and that what we're doing is worth the investment? And I tell you, the number of times I've heard people say, we invest so much in marketing, I have no idea what we're getting out of it. And that's a terrible feeling. right? And you're
Right.
probably doing great things, but if you
You can't
if
see
you
it.
can't see it, or you can't see if things are fitting together, um, then that's a pretty uncomfortable space to be in, and then that's makes it hard to continue and have faith in what you're working on.
Let's talk about the dashboard because I think that it's a blessing and a curse.
Hmm.
I'm running into this. I'm feeling like the dashboard is a blessing and a curse because it's a snapshot of what I want you to see, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's
Hmm.
really important what you're saying of really understanding what it is you need to show to your customers and what they really care about, but understand that it's not actually the whole picture of what's happening and what you should be most importantly, and this is just me talking, Rachel, you're going to set me straight. But most importantly, what you should be doing about it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I feel like we've become a little reliant as the practitioners within marketing on the dashboard.
Hmm.
Am
Yeah,
I?
I think that's fair. I mean, I think it's fair. It's also it's easy, and it's easier than the manual process, and it's more efficient. And I think for me to be able to email over a link or a really digestible report, and I meet monthly with my direct contact with my client, but then they obviously are having their own chain. So it is, I feel good about being able to give them something that meets them where they are. But I
Right.
think, to your point, you have to be very careful to not say, okay, well, here's three really great data points. Let's focus on that. That's not as helpful, and that is sort of, not looking at the whole picture. I think it is responsible for us to say specifically, I need to show you that whole picture, and I need to help you understand what that all means. So, for example, I don't just say, for the Google pay-per-click, I don't just say, okay, you got this many impressions and you got this many clicks, and your click through rate is great and excellent and awesome. We also look at, for each one of those ads, like, how are they performing individually? What are those looking for? And this one here isn't performing very well. So my recommendation is that we, update or optimize or make those changes. I had a client just the other day that we've been using some of the same Facebook ad creative now for several months. And so I was telling them, well, we are starting to see a reduction in conversions, in part because people have seen these ads for months. And so, one, here's the understanding of why this happened, and two, here's what we need to do about it. And so here's our plan then to do that. So I think some of it falls to us to make sure that what we are saying is the full picture, and we're not making sure that everything is rosy all the time on the dashboard. And that's,
Yeah.
you have to be thinking about that. You need to be really honest and transparent. And I think having data month to month, and then saying, okay, again, as we talked about earlier, okay, now let's look back 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and look how it's gone over time. And that giving you some of that additional trend, which also is helpful for us as marketers, to say, gosh, I thought this was going really well, but when you look at it back from 12 months, I'm not really that excited about the trends. Okay, what does that tell us that we need to do then in terms of making changes or making updates? So yeah, I agree with you, and I always try to I try to be careful about giving too much just raw data, because I've been in a lot of rooms where people
Okay.
feel very overwhelmed because I can just la, 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 and I'll get
Mhm.
going on the
And
data,
start
and it's
screen
this.
sharing and here's all of my raw data. Let me show you my work.
Yes, yes, yes.
I know our math teachers taught us to show our work.
I know,
So let
right?
me tell
Here's
you,
all of it.
our clients don't want to see it. They want to know what we're going to do about it and the end result. Totally. I
Yes.
I am in total agreement. What I worry about with dashboards
Hmm.
is that if we don't pair it with the monthly view like you're talking about, or quarterly, however often view we want to do, and we're reliant on just that one dashboard, I find we get sort of stuck in an echo chamber of telling the same story over and over again, rather than digging in to find the trends, right? One of the challenges with the dashboards, you can't always see, it's so high level that you're seeing month over month, we're going up, we're going down, we're going up, we're going down, but why? And so pairing it with even like a 3-slide PowerPoint to tell the story, it's got to come back to the data story. A dashboard is wonderful in a weekly, daily, like I just want to change some dates here and see some things, great. But to tell the story of what's happening with the data, you need to sit with it. I actually messaged one of my employees and I was like, can I get access to this LinkedIn? Because I need a pivot table. I need a raw export, and I just want to create some VLOOKUPs, and then I just want a pivot table. Now I feel like I'm dating myself, but like I need to sit with it to figure out like, what are we actually going to do about this? What's actually happening, right? So I so much agreement, Rachel, of what you're saying of yes, dashboards are wonderful. And I do not want to minimize dashboards, because the other beautiful thing that you mentioned that's so key, and technology has come such a long way in making this possible, is that you can aggregate it.
Yes.
And start telling the attribution story and actually see how one channel impacts the other down funnel. Like, like finally.
Yes. I mean, honestly, if you try to look back at some of the work we were doing even, 10, 15 years ago, it's like, oh my gosh.
We were doing it in, to your point, Excel sheets, right? We had a tab for every channel. And then we were trying to aggregate it through some ifs and VLOOKUPs into its final tab to tell the story, and then put it into a presentation to ultimately like boil it up. It was really, really painful. Now we can look at a dashboard, start to see some trends, and then go, that's interesting. And then download the data, start pivoting, and then figure out why that's interesting. Much quicker.
Yeah. And much more approachable, because back in the day, I mean, I would be in rooms and people, they were very kind, but you could see the bubble of like, oh my gosh, when is she done? How many minutes until she's done? And also because we get excited about what we're working on and proud of it, or maybe it's just me and drinking too much coffee, but I'm like, okay, guess what this is? And this means this and da da da. So
we got way too in the weeds. All day. But I love this, Rachel. I'm so grateful for this conversation. You really simplified it in an elegant way for us to say, start with your audience, what matters to them, do the research there using things like Toro, figure out where they are, and then build through the tracking. Make sure all your tracking's in place. Whatever you decide on how you want to do that's fine. Just make sure it's consistent and clean and everybody understands what it is. And then, build it, filter it into a system like a dashboard. There's some wonderful tools out there. I've had a few folks on my show. We use Improvato. Rachel, I'm sure you have some endless recommendations. We'll get those in the show notes. And then think about how you want to present this to the client in a way that talks about actionable insights to say, this is what your investment was, and this is what we're doing about it to make it even better for you. What did I miss, Rachel? What do you want to double down on? What do you want to correct me on?
No, I think that's fantastic. I think it's fantastic. And the only thing I will add, and we didn't really get to it, is always making sure that your digital infrastructure is solid, because before you invest in paid and invest in SEM, all these things, if you are really wanting to sell a product and you spend so much money getting people to click on it and go to your website, but then your website doesn't load on mobile, or it's hard to find the place that you pull the trigger, so your digital infrastructure is so important that that has to be part of that assessment perspective before you go anywhere further. And it's an easy step to miss, because you can open your website and it's like, this is beautiful and I love it and it all makes sense. But remember, you either built it or had someone build it, or you're too intimately in the loop on how you want your journey to work. So you got to make sure that it's obvious for them, and double check yourself, I guess, is my tip.
You are no longer the audience.
Exactly.
It is very hard to wrap our brains around that. But when you become the builder of the thing, it is no longer for you.
Mm-mm.
It's no
Nope.
longer for you. Rachael, where can people find you? If they want to learn more, they want to work with you, where do they go?
Oh, thanks for asking. So my website is woodsmarcom.com. So it's woodsmarcom.com. And as we talked about earlier, there's an upgrade coming. So it'll eventually be even better than it is. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook under Woods MarCom, and you can find me at Rachael Woods. I think I'm Rachael A. Woods on LinkedIn. So I'm out and about trying to create content as much as I can find bandwidth to do so, but it's typically my third priority. So,
We're so grateful and we're here for it. Last question for you, Rachael, because you are more than a marketer. I know it's hard to believe when we're business owners and we are more than marketers. What a concept. It's 2024. COVID is what it is. What are you most looking forward to this coming year?
Such a great question. I have really been excited about being able to be in community and in space with humans. I am such a virtual tech obsessed loving person, but I was in a room earlier this week with a whole bunch of executives for a client that I was working with, and I literally said this as it's just so great to sit here and be in space with us. We were face to face asking each other's questions and really immersed in that experience. And I did not fully appreciate that until we lost it. And I think that we're kind of in that space. I think 2023 was there, and we're moving into being able to just really do more of that. I think more people are appreciating it and liking it. So I'm seeing more and more in-person opportunities than even I did the last year. And that gets me kind of excited.
So in agreement. I think 2023 was the emerging year. In 2024,
Mhm.
we're all getting it out there and see each other in person. I am coming to Cybersecurity Marketing Con, so if you are headed there, I will see you in December in Philly, in my hometown. Cannot wait. Cannot wait. Rachael, this was amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode was brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps cybersecurity and complex brands get found via SEO and digital ads. It's hosted by me, Carrie Gard, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. And if you'd like to be a guest, DM me in LinkedIn. That's where I hang out. I'd love to have you on. So good. Rachael, thank you again.
Thank you so much.